The president stared down the camera, his voice like steel. While some people play games for clicks, we are making decisions that protect American lives. He didn't even say the congressman's name. He didn't have to. The morning sun slanted through the tall windows of Congressman Eric Swalwell's office, but the light couldn't penetrate the thick cloud of self-satisfaction that filled the room. Swalwell leaned back in his leather chair, a predatory grin spreading across his face. Across from him, a young, eager aide named Josh vibrated with nervous energy, clutching a tablet like it was a holy text. "Okay, lay it on me again, Josh. I want to savor it," Swalwell said, steepling his fingers. "It's gold, sir. Pure gold," Josh gushed. "We hit him on the tariffs. The base hates them, the media hates them, and we've got the perfect acronym. It's biting, it's memorable, it's everything." Swalwell's grin widened. "Say it." "Taco," Josh announced, his voice filled with reverence. "Trump. Always. Chickens. Out." "Brilliant," Swalwell breathed, the word a soft hiss. "Absolutely brilliant. He portrays himself as this tough guy, this strong man. We're going to expose him for what he is, a coward who hides behind tariffs because he's afraid of real negotiation." The plan was simple, almost juvenile in its execution. But that was the point. In the modern political landscape, substance was a slow, boring freight train. A meme was a supersonic jet. They would bypass reasoned debate entirely and go straight for the jugular of ridicule. "And the video component is key," Josh added, swiping through a storyboard on his tablet. "You, sir, at your desk. A single taco. You don't say a word, you just eat it. Slowly. While looking directly into the camera, the caption will have the hashtag taco. Swalwell imagined it. The silent defiance. The implicit mockery. It was the kind of stunt that would dominate the news cycle for a full day. The media would have no choice but to cover it. His face would be everywhere, the clever warrior who had finally outsmarted the great Donald Trump. "It's perfect," Swalwell declared, standing up. "It paints him as weak and indecisive. It's a power move. Let's do it. Get the camera. And someone get me a taco. Make sure it looks good. The lighting has to be perfect." As his team scrambled to set up the shot, Swalwell felt a surge of adrenaline. This was what he lived for. Not the tedious work of legislation or constituent services, but the thrill of the fight. The game. And today, he was sure he was about to score a checkmate. Miles away, in the quiet, solemn confines of the Oval Office, the game being played was infinitely more serious. There were no cameras, no hashtags, no thought of tacos. The air was thick with tension, the kind that precedes decisions upon which the fate of nations can turn. President Donald J. Trump sat behind the resolute desk, not leaning back, but perched on the edge of his seat. His focus was laser sharp, his gaze fixed on the men assembled before him, his vice president, his secretary of state, and his secretary of defense. Spread across the desk were satellite images and intelligence briefings marked with the highest levels of classification. The subject was Iran. "Their breakout time is shrinking," the Secretary of Defense said, his voice a low, gravelly monotone. He pointed to a highlighted section in a report. "The intelligence is unequivocal. They're enriching uranium at a speed that defies every agreement and every warning we've given them. They believe we don't have the will to act." President Trump listened, his expression unreadable. He absorbed every word, every nuance. He wasn't thinking about polls or public perception. He was thinking about radioactive material in the hands of fanatics. He was thinking about the safety of millions of lives, both at home and abroad. "They're testing us," Trump said, his voice calm but with an undercurrent of cold fury. "They see our political divisions, they watch our news, and they think we're too distracted, too weak to stop them. They think they can cross the ultimate red line and we'll just, issue another strongly worded condemnation?" He looked from man to man, his eyes demanding answers, not platitudes. "What are our options? And don't give me the diplomatic boilerplate. I want real options. I want to know what we can do to guarantee that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon. Guarantee." For the next hour, They went over the scenarios. Each one was fraught with risk. Each one carried monumental consequences. This was leadership, raw and unfiltered. It was the crushing weight of responsibility, a burden that would make a lesser man crumble. But Trump was not a lesser man. He was a patriot, and he would not allow America's enemies to misjudge its resolve. "They need to know we're serious," Trump said finally, his voice dropping to a decisive, steely tone. "We're not going to be goaded into a war. But we will not, under any circumstances, allow them to hold the world hostage. Set the deadline. 2 weeks. They have 2 weeks to allow full, unfettered inspections and begin dismantling their program. Or we will dismantle it for them." The order hung in the air, its gravity felt by everyone in the room. It was a clear, unambiguous line in the sand. As his national security team left to begin executing the directive, Trump remained at his desk, the weight of the world on his shoulders. He was a president engaged in the deadly calculus of war and peace, completely unaware of the trivial charade that was about to play out on the nation's phone screens. Just after noon, it dropped. Swalwell's video landed on social media with the force of a digital firecracker. As he had predicted, it went viral almost instantly. His followers and the legions of anti-Trump blue checks hailed it as an act of political genius. "Swalwell silently destroys Trump's tariff policy," one headline screamed. "The taco that roared, a masterclass in political satire," another gushed. Swalwell watched the view count climb into the millions, his chest swelling with pride. His phone blew up with congratulatory texts from fellow politicians and fawning media bookers. He had done it. He was the center of the political universe. He had made the great Donald Trump the punchline of a national joke. The stunt reached its intended crescendo during the afternoon White House press briefing. A reporter from a reliably hostile network stood up, a smug look on her face. "The president is being widely mocked online today after Congressman Swalwell's taco video, which brands him as a coward," she began, her voice dripping with condescension. "Does the president have a response to the charge that he always chickens out when it comes to tough negotiations?" The press secretary, prepared for the question, began to deliver a standard, professional response. But before she could finish, a side door to the briefing room opened. President Trump himself stepped inside. The room fell silent. Cameras whirred and clicked. The president walked calmly to the podium, his presence immediately commanding the full and undivided attention of everyone present. He adjusted the microphone, his gaze sweeping over the assembled reporters. He looked directly at the journalist who had asked the question. "I was just in the Oval Office with my national security team," the president began, his voice even and powerful, devoid of anger but full of an immense, unshakable authority. "We were discussing matters of grave importance. We were talking about the very real threat of a rogue nation acquiring nuclear weapons. We were making decisions that will affect the security of this country and the world for generations to come." He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. "So you'll have to forgive me," he continued, his eyes still locked on the reporter, "if I haven't spent my day consumed with the social media stunts of a congressman who has too much time on his hands. While some people play games for clicks, we are making decisions that protect American lives. While some people are focused on their lunch, we are focused on preventing a war." He didn't say Swalwell's name. He didn't need to. The dismissal was absolute, the rebuke total. "I am the President of the United States," he concluded, his voice resonating with strength and seriousness. "My focus is on the American people, on our safety, and on our prosperity. I don't have time for the childish games of sad, attention-seeking politicians. Are there any serious questions?" The room was stunned into silence. The reporter who had asked the question looked as if she'd been slapped. In less than 60 seconds, the president had not just deflected the attack, he had vaporized it. He had effortlessly reframed the entire day's narrative from one of petty political theater to one of profound and sober leadership. The effect was immediate and devastating for Swalwell. The split screen was stark. On one side, news channels showed clips of Congressman Swalwell silently and smugly chewing a taco in his comfortable office. On the other side, they showed President Trump, a pillar of strength and seriousness, speaking with grave authority about matters of war and peace. The public verdict was swift and brutal. The #taco hashtag was hijacked, no longer a tool of mockery against the president, but against its creator. Memes flooded the internet, depicting Swalwell as a clown, a child playing with his food while the adults were running the world. Back in his office, the glow of victory had vanished from Swalwell's face, replaced by a pale, sickly pallor. He stared at the television screen, watching his moment of triumph curdle into a career-defining humiliation. The congratulatory calls had stopped. His aide, Josh, was now pretending to be intensely busy with paperwork in the corner of the room, avoiding eye contact. Swalwell watched as a respected political analyst, someone he had always tried to impress, looked into the camera and said, "What we saw today was the difference between a performer and a president. One was desperate for attention. The other was shouldering the burdens of command. It's hard to imagine a more potent or embarrassing contrast." The TACO acronym had backfired spectacularly. It had become a permanent brand, but not for the president. It had become a symbol of Eric Swalwell's own political immaturity, a self-inflicted wound that would follow him forever. He sank into his chair, the leftover taco on his desk, now looking like a sad, greasy monument to his own arrogance and epic miscalculation. He hadn't landed a punch. He had only succeeded in knocking himself out. Late that night, in the Oval Office, President Trump took a final briefing on the Iran situation. On a muted television in the background, a news program was still showing Swalwell's face, a look of profound defeat now etched upon it. The president glanced at the screen for a brief moment, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes, before turning his attention back to the maps and documents spread across the Resolute desk. The trivialities of the day were already forgotten. The patriot was back at work, his focus solely on the nation he was sworn to protect. The victory was his, not because he had engaged in the fight, but because he had proven he was above it. Was the president's response the perfect way to shut down the political stunt? Let us know what you think. And for more stories of conviction and leadership, make sure to subscribe.